medication, and of course the doctor is very happy to prescribe another medication for you. You could say I've been very lucky. I have been lucky. Tomorrow I could be unlucky. I know how the world works. But the fact of the matter is I've also watched everything I put in my mouth for 30 years. I've taken mega doses of vitamin C, vitamin E, B vitamins, and various doses of garlic and wine and vodka and beer, and all of them have worked superbly, as have my daily bicycle rides, which Dr. Kellogg highly recommended for your balance, if not for anything else. We'll talk about how much you need to exercise in a moment. But again, I want to go back to the overall statement that I'm making about why I am on a non-dairy diet. About 6 months ago, about a year ago, I started to get severe pains in my feet, not in my legs, but in the ball of my foot where I was limping. And my left hand, I couldn't close it. And I said, this is absurd. I shouldn't have arthritis. I'm in good health. Well, I again went back to my own writings of 30 years ago, and I said, Doctor, practice what you preach. Dr. Savage, practice what you preach. Don't you remember writing 30 years ago that the literature was filled with evidence that certain people cannot tolerate dairy because they do not have sufficient quantities of lactase to break down the lactose found in milk products? And that some people get relief from arthritis by eliminating all dairy. That means hard cheeses, that means milk, that means ice cream, etc. Well, guess what happened? I gave up all dairy, and I mean butter. I mean small amounts of milk and coffee. I mean what I loved the most, which was Parmesan cheese, Pecorino Romano. I loved it. I was on everything. I won't touch it. And you know what? I stopped limping, and my hand is fine. And if I cheat on my diet so much as one meal, the pain comes back. So as I say to you, you want to have a good discussion about real health care reform, real health insurance reform. It starts at your dinner table. You are the ultimate doctor to yourself. Don't rely upon anyone else until you absolutely need them. Anyway, these are some of the topics that I want to talk about today. We also have sound of President Obama in Mexico, of all places, promising the Mexicans once again that health care reform is on the way and that Uncle Schmuck will give them all a gold-plated medical care system if only he can continue to BS the public a little bit more. I'll be right back. Imagine discovering an opportunity that can completely rebuild your retirement fund by 40% over the next 2 years. Does it sound too good to be true? It's not if you take action today. Call my good friends, and I mean good friends, at Swiss America. Gold IRAs have averaged 20% per year growth since 2001. It's just common sense to roll over dead paper assets into gold, the best performing asset of the century. Then you can relax no matter what happens on Wall Street. Call now for a complete Gold 101 DVD and my free CD.
Call toll-free 888-867-8965. That's 888-867-8965.
For nearly a decade, I've told you to trust gold coins and Swiss America. Today, it's more urgent than ever. Get my CD, DVD, and new special report.
Call toll-free 888-867-8965. That's 888-867-8965.
Learn before you earn. Don't just imagine rebuilding your wealth. Do it now.
Call 888-867-8965 today.
I'm Kim Commando. You can keep up with all things digital Monday through Friday in the noon hour with My Digital Minute on Talk 910 KNEW.
It is Savage Part 2. Playing Topsy Part 1 by Cozy Cole. Yeah. So if your child has Parkinson's, cerebral palsy, or if your grandmother has Parkinson's, according to Rahm Emanuel's brother, Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel, who was the brother of White House Chief of Staff Rahm, who is now a mole inside the White House. He's a health policy advisor at the OMB. He's a member of the Federal Council on Comparative Effectiveness Research, whatever that means. He says that doctors take their Hippocratic Oath too seriously. This is the compassionate Ezekiel Emanuel. That's Rahm's brother. He says doctors take the Hippocratic Oath too seriously. And he says doctors should look beyond the needs of their patients and consider social justice. Those are progressive words, social justice, such as whether the money could be better spent on somebody else. So in other words, if you have a grandmother with Parkinson's who's had a good life, that money could be better spent on a young Mexican illegal alien. After all, that young Mexican illegal alien has not yet had a long, good life. So according to Rahm Emanuel's brother, Ezekiel Emanuel, your grandmother should not be treated for Parkinson's, but that money should be spent on the illegal alien 5-year-old, perhaps because that child has a longer road ahead. And we need social justice. And, of course, if eventually you have to take a communitarianism approach, according to Ezekiel Emanuel, communitarianism, that will guide you. And he said that medical care should be reserved for the non-disabled. And it should not be given to those who are, quote, irreversibly prevented from being or becoming participating citizens. So, in other words, this is very close to dear Adolf's healthcare system. As you well know, the social justice, Adolf Hitler was a social justice giver, and Hitler believed in social justice, too. And Hitler didn't want to guarantee health services to patients who were not participating citizens, and so he started to euthanize disabled people. I don't know if you know this. Before the Jews were rounded up and exterminated by Hitler started to exterminate the mentally incompetent and the disabled in good old Germany in the 1930s. But the average German was so appalled by the program of euthanizing the handicapped in Germany that good old Adolf and Hermann Goring stopped killing such people and went on to killing somebody else. But, of course, it can't happen here because Ezekiel Emanuel is not Hitler. Rahm Emanuel is not Hitler. These are good, honest, wonderful men who believe in the fair American way. And so if your grandmother has Parkinson's or a child has cerebral palsy, you can definitely understand that there will be discrimination against them. Of course, it will not be discrimination in the sense that you know it to be discrimination, because it will be framed as social justice. Now, of course, if you go and try to appeal to the government while they're euthanizing your child by not giving them the care that they need, you will be considered un-American by Nancy Pelosi, and perhaps you will be rounded up and put into an internment camp for, an interminable period of time. You see, there are internment camps being planned. You may not understand it because you didn't see it on CBS News, but I direct you to an article that came out over the weekend that will scare you to death. It came out on WorldNet Daily. I put it up on michaelsavage.com. Now you say, well, they're making it up. They're just scaring you. No. It's an ad for National Guardsmen to run internment camps. Savage.
Talk 910 KNEW. Here's Michael Savage.
Mike Elite Leaps Live. And that's Charlie Parker with Lester Leaps in. Lester Leaps in Charlie Parker. Yeah. So we're talking about a gangster group from Chicago trying to hijack the greatest medical care system the world has ever seen and convert it into something we don't even know. We don't know what this Frankenstein will look like. That's the amazing part. But if you actually read what Rahm Emanuel's brother Ezekiel has written, and we're talking about publications he's written for, such as the JAMA, June 18, 2008, where he says doctors take the Hippocratic Oath too seriously. In the Hastings Center report, Rahm Emanuel's brother Ezekiel Emanuel says that we should have communitarianism decisions, and he says medical care should be reserved for the non-disabled, not those who are irreversibly prevented from being or becoming participating citizens. You know, I could see why that father whose son has MS, muscular dystrophy, tried to confront Dingle. I had a brother who was born disabled, so to speak, but so severely disabled that he couldn't walk, couldn't talk, couldn't hear. Well, they say he couldn't hear, but I whistled to him and he heard me, but I don't want to go into that stuff. He was blind, and he was totally, just, that's the way it was. Well, I guess to Dr. Ezekiel Emanuel, my brother Jerome should have been euthanized at birth because it cost a lot of money to take care of Jerome. And, of course, think of the amount of money that Ezekiel Emanuel could have spent on an illegal alien from Mexico, let us say, who was in a gun battle somewhere over drugs in Los Angeles. Think about that. Think of the wonderful medical care that Ezekiel Emanuel can provide to tattooed folks in our prisons who are not even citizens with the money that could have gone to care for the disabled. You know, it's chilling when I read this to you to think what monsters these two guys are. Joining us right now is Dr. Frank Rosenblum, who is a brilliant man. Dr. Rosenblum wrote an article that published last week called Obama, the Modern-Day Roman Tyrant, which I quoted from, I would say liberally, to use a phrase that I don't often use. Dr. Rosenblum, welcome to the Savage Nation. Thanks for calling the show.
Thank you very much for having me, Michael.
Well, you wrote a brilliant article on Obama and his inclinations towards a tyranny. But, you know, as a doctor, let me just open it up. I mean, you know what Ezekiel Emanuel has written, right? You've seen this article?
I do. I have, unfortunately, yes.
Does he really mean this, that we should cut off, that the government will cut off any care to non-participating citizens?
You know, I completely believe he means it. As you know, Michael, and you've said so many